It was 2 years ago today that the course of history nearly changed in Butler, Pennsylvania. I'm pleased to be joined today by two distinguished guests. We've got author Ken Silva and, of course, former director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. Welcome to you both.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Joe, welcome to the show for the first time. I think people are really interested. I know I am, and I know Ken is really interested in hearing your comments. You've been very vocal about the investigation that you attempted to conduct and were largely thwarted in doing. What can you tell us about that? And what do we know, do you think, today that we did not know back in 2024? Oh, wait a minute. We've got no sound on you, Joe. Stand by just a second for Joe's sound. Let's see. We had it a second ago. Everything should be there. You gotta maybe unplug and replug the microphone. You know something? This has happened to another guest the other day. Sal Greco lost his sound for a moment. USB gremlins. Ken, while Joe is getting ready, we can remind everybody, of course, that you are the author of the fantastic new book, The Trump Assassination Plots, What the Investigation Missed and Why It Matters. Joe, have we got you back on the sound? See, it never fails that we get important guests on the show and the technical gremlins work their way in there. We'll get this sorted out in just a second. There's nothing on my end that can affect the individual sound. You got mute maybe on Zoom clicked? Lower left there? No. Let's see, what do we got here with, oh boy. So Ken, give us an update on your latest. You've been all over the place, lots of great interviews talking about the book.
Yeah, I actually just got home last night. In fact, after spending a couple days in Butler last week, where I gave a talk to a local GOP group, met two of the shooting survivors, Copenhaver and David Dutch. And yeah, it was just refreshing to see how much the local community still cares about this story despite the national apathy. So kind of
Yeah.
renewed the energy to keep hammering the ground and keep working on this story.
Yeah, I saw that on your X feed that you had met um, those guys, and what did they say to you? Was there, the thing that I'm most interested in is there was some video that I think David Dutch had of someone running on the roof, and I'm pretty sure it was his attorneys who refused to provide that video. I don't imagine you had an opportunity to speak to them about that.
I didn't speak to them about that. That was actually Copenhaver's footage, and apparently, yeah, he was filming Trump speaking, and you can see like crooks running in the background. And after he was shot, his son was looking through his footage, and it was his son who actually spotted crooks in the background. Without disclosing too much of what was privately said, I just tell you they're Dutch and Copenhagen are kind of getting a raw deal from the government, and
Huh.
they've actually filed lawsuits over negligence stemming from the security failures, and they couldn't handle things behind closed doors, which has forced them to take their case to federal court. Which is, yeah, I was told a lot, can't really disclose it because of the ongoing litigation, but it's really bizarre that you think it would be good politics to take care of these guys, but.
Right.
Uh, it doesn't seem like that's happening.
Well, Joe is another guy who's gotten kind of a raw deal. I think we've got Joe back now. How you doing? Oh my God, we do not have Joe on the audio. This is terrible. We had him at the outset. Maybe Joe, do you want to try to reconnect on Zoom? What we're going to do is we're going to chat here for a little while, and then I want to share some video with Joe that will almost surely get us kicked off of YouTube. So hopefully he can stay with us for the sponsor exclusive segment. Of course, everybody can see that by subscribing to Ken on substack.com/at Ken Silva, or to me on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Ken, while we're getting Joe integrated here, let's see, here he is. He's back. Maybe we can just get him right in
Yeah, I've
here.
got I've got a lot of questions for Joe, so I hope that I've never actually talked to him before, so I hope the audio gets going.
I think he's right back here now. Joe, can we hear you now?
I can hear you guys just
There
fine.
we
Can you
go.
hear me?
We've got you.
Okay.
Welcome back to the show, Joe. Wonderful.
Turn it off, turn it back on again. There we go.
That's the number one method for getting anything to work. So, Joe, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you give people, for those who've been living under a rock, perhaps, just give everybody a little bit of background on you and how you got involved in the investigation into Butler and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center before I was actually confirmed by the Senate. It's a whole long process. While I was waiting to be confirmed, I was the DNI Tulsi Gabbard's chief of staff. Also was on the landing team and the beachhead team. So during the transition, and then before even the DNI was confirmed, I was in ODNI working on behalf of the Trump administration. So kind of came in even before day one. And one of the big things we wanted to look at, obviously, was the Butler assassination, because I think under the previous administration, most of us, I think most of the American people, but especially Trump supporters, we felt like, we didn't get the full story. And so I thought that this would be fairly easy for us to get answers on because we controlled the government now. So basically, from I would say late January, early February, I started looking at the intelligence aspect that underpinned a lot of the narrative around Butler, because there's kind of two separate stories here that Ken does a great job of kind of describing in his book. There's what took place on the ground in Butler, and a lot of that pertains to Thomas Crooks and the way that the security was coordinated that day. But then there's also this heavy, it's beyond innuendo, because a lot of even government officials were saying that Iran tried to kill President Trump, and there would be heavy innuendo that Butler was one of the assassination attempts. And so I just said, hey, I want to see all the underpinning intelligence, not the FBI domestic law enforcement stuff. I want to look at all the intelligence that points to any kind of Iranian involvement or everything the intelligence community knows about Butler, and then also about West Palm Beach. And then with Butler, there was this whole other story that wasn't in the public sphere yet, really, at the time. A gentleman named Asif Merchant, who ostensibly was recruited by the Iranians, he's a Pakistani national, had come to America, was immediately put under FBI surveillance. The FBI threw some confidential human sources at him, and he was arrested. And in 2 days, and this is like 2 days before Butler. And so I'm reading the intelligence and seeing that this guy believes, and the U.S. law enforcement and intelligence community believes, that this individual was going to hire some snipers. They arrest him, and then 2 days later, Butler takes place. So my obvious question was like, hey, who are these snipers that he was going to hire? After much back and forth, the FBI eventually says, oh, these were FBI confidential human sources. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. We got it all under control. Now, my background before being in the Trump administration, I was in special forces. I was also in the CIA. I've ran a lot of sources. I've ran a lot of source networks. And when you start talking about having your source hire another guy who's going to hire another guy, things get dicey really quickly. So my question was, is there any linkage whatsoever between what took place with Merchant and what took place that day on Butler? Is there any linkage between Thomas Crooks and anybody who was associated, affiliated with the Merchant case? I got told, hey, you can't touch this because there's an ongoing case against Merchant. But also I said, okay, well, Crooks is dead. We should be able to look at all of his different devices to see if there's any foreign ties, any foreign linkage. I was told two different stories. I was told initially that we couldn't get into Crooks's devices, which, coming from the intelligence community and special operations, I said, okay, well, if the FBI can't get into his devices, then let's make his devices available for the rest of the community, because between the NSA and everybody else we have in the government, like, we taxpayers pay a lot of money for this stuff. I'm thinking someone can probably get into his devices, and there's information there that we need. And this is standard procedure whenever there's a case like this that potentially could have a foreign tie. Eventually, I was told, no, no, okay, actually, we did get into them. We don't need your help cracking into them, but there was nothing there. And again, my question was like, well, what do you mean nothing there? We should at least be able to see the exploit, what came off of that, to let the intelligence community determine if there is any foreign ties. Again, was, blocked and told to kind of pound sand, and this took place over the course of several different months. I mean, Bongino's kind of made a lot of this public. I did meet with him at some point, and Bongino said that we could see the briefing that they gave to the president. I said, "Great." He never followed up on it. We reached back out to him. I was also in the White House. I believe this is around October, and we told the president, about there being a confidential human source involved in the Butler assassination. He said that he hadn't heard that before. And then what the president said to me and a group of us that were there, the FBI was not there in the room, but he said that he wasn't satisfied with the results of the Butler investigation.
But hang on,
Um,
Joe, because a lot of people have publicly heard Trump say that he is satisfied. Do you have any insight into where that disconnect comes from? Because it's pretty shocking to me. I mean, if I were the president of the United States and somebody tried to kill me, that would be day one. Who did this?
that's what I thought too, and that's why basically day one, this is one of the first things I said, "Hey, let's get to the bottom of this." As of October of 2025, around that time frame, he, at least, to us, was saying, I'm still interested in this. I'm not satisfied with the information that I've been given. Now, he could have gotten other information, that I wasn't privy to, a meeting that I wasn't in, that did satisfy his curiosity. That potentially did happen. I know, I think Tucker said that he spoke with the president sometime after that date. And, there was that whole back and forth between him and Bongino where the president said he was completely satisfied. So I don't know what happened. I don't believe that there was any more information that was given to the president that I'm aware of. Because still, at the end of the day, we were told that, Crooks is an enigma. We can't get into his devices. We can get into his devices, and there's nothing there. But then, as Ken pointed out in his book, then an investigative journalist working for Tucker found this entire online persona where he is interacting with a member of a terrorist group overseas, who we are monitoring that terrorist group. So I found it very hard to believe after that information came out that we weren't aware in some way, shape, or form of what was going on with Crooks. So again, when there's this many questions that are still unanswered, I find it hard to believe that we're getting the full picture.
Yeah. Ken, what do you think of all that?
Yeah, you said a lot there, but first of all, I just want to clarify. You said you briefed Trump and told them there was a CHS in the Butler event. I assume you mean the Merchant?
I'm sorry, yes, the Merchant, you're correct.
Oh, okay, okay, because that would be
Yeah.
massive, massive news if that were the case. Just more fundamentally, I guess I don't really know how the ODNI works. Like, what authorities do you have to compel the FBI to disclose intelligence? Because I thought the whole point of the ODNI is to break down these firewalls so they're not siloing information, so we could prevent like another 9/11. So, like, do you have subpoena power, or how does that even work?
Unfortunately, the intent of ODNI and the National Counterterrorism Center was to be, the oversight mechanism, especially ODNI. ODNI is supposed to be the oversight mechanism for the entire intelligence community. So even the FBI folks that are working on intelligence matters, technically, they are supposed to report to the DNI. However, the DNI actually lacks. She has or whoever sits in that chair has the statutory authority to ask questions, to look into basically anything, but they don't have the real power in the sense that like the DOJ does. So the DNI can't really subpoena anybody. They most certainly don't have any, 1811 investigators that can go in with a badge and a gun and say, you will give me this information. So ODNI, although on paper is probably the most powerful, institution within the IC, it actually has like the least amount of actual raw power.
Okay, interesting, interesting. And you said most of your work took place in January and February 2025?
Yeah, in that time frame, and probably into March, because we were going back and forth trying to get this. I mean, I was working with other political appointees saying, "Hey, can we have this information?" And then when we got, kind of the runaround, then we would put it in writing and send official memorandums requesting information directly to the DOJ and directly to the FBI.
Okay, got it, got it. Yeah, the reason I asked about that is because I was looking back at some of the public statements made by Trump, and by March of 2025, he's saying he's satisfied with the investigation. He guesses he kind of flip-flopped in April. Um, and then around the same time in April, Corey Mills, I sent Jason the video. I don't know if we want to
Yeah,
play it. It's not
you
that
could play
interesting,
that.
but Corey Mills says that he was briefed by you and three special operators in the ODNI. And I'm wondering, without disclosing classified information or anything, can you describe the work you did with members of Congress or what was going on around that time?
Yeah, we met. I don't remember exactly. It's around that time frame with Mills and Eli Crane. They were probably the 2 point men in terms of congressional. I'd say congressional curiosity. Them, Anna Paulina Luna as well. They were probably the most engaged and curious. Senator Ron Johnson was as well. And so they just kind of wanted to see, now that the Trump administration was in charge of, the federal apparatus, what we were doing. And so I was keeping them informed basically of everything I just, shared with you guys. And then, I know that Mills and Eli Crane had both gone to Butler and kind of ran their own investigation and their own parallel committee that wasn't an official committee. And so we just kind of compared notes. And that's where I was made aware of some of the work that Jason and Cullen had done on Butler writ large, in terms of, was there a second shooter, the bullet trajectories, et cetera. So it was more of us comparing notes. I did brief them on, kind of what I just told you guys, because most of that hadn't been publicly disclosed, and I had just learned it. So we were mostly just kind of syncing up at that point.
Got it, got it. And Dan Bongino actually said in a video recently that he offered you a briefing and quote, nobody ever showed up. But now you're just saying that you did actually meet him and at least saw the results of the investigation, if not the
Yeah, I mean,
details.
Dan came to NCTC. That's all. You can go look at the old public Twitter profiles. He was there. We discussed this. That's where he told me, "Hey, there's nothing in the phone. It's kind of case closed, and you guys can come receive the same brief that we gave to Trump." We reached out on multiple occasions. I'm sure all that can be FOIA. You can just look for communication between NCTC and the FBI through our chiefs of staff. I mean, I've got the whatever screenshots of me reaching out to Dan and not getting anything back, in terms of just me texting him. But yeah, so he offered to give us whatever brief it was that he gave the president, but it never happened. We attempted to make it happen.
Okay. And it was Dan that told you that they couldn't get into the phones? Yeah.
By that time, so initially, Dan, I don't even think Dan was in position when I was initially told they couldn't get into the phones. That was just random, not random, but that was just people within the FBI, that were giving me that back. But then by the time Dan was in his seat and we met face to face, Dan said, "No, no, we did get in there. There
Okay.
was nothing in the phones." He said, "Oh, there's some gaming stuff and this and that." And I said, "Okay, well, we should be able to like look at this and exploit it, because there could be other things, inside the phone that may have missed the first glance. Let's just do our due diligence."
Got it. Got it. Was there any is there any classified information in the Thomas Crooks investigation? I know like the Secret Service security side of it has a lot of classified information for the obvious reasons, but are you aware of like in the FBI's investigation into him, was that stuff actually classified?
In the Crooks, no, because I just didn't see that much about
Okay.
Crooks. When I would ask the FBI about Crooks, they'd be like, "I don't know. He's a crazy kid on the roof, and and he was shot, and we couldn't get in the phones, and we got on the phone." So they no, there was no classified information there that I was aware of on the FBI side.
Hmm.
And so, Joe, just in terms of the public open source information, things that Ken has turned up, I've turned up, other people have turned up, what are your thoughts about that? Did anybody ever mention anything about this guy, Maxwell Yerrick? It's pretty strange. I don't know if you got to see my interview the other day with Roger Stone, but he described how someone from the Pennsylvania State Police contacted him, and Roger knows this person, says he trusts this person. It doesn't seem like something that would be made up. I mean, we could speculate and imagine motives for making up a story about this Iranian guy who, the FBI does stuff like that all the time, pin things on guys, bring charges against them, throw them in jail. We've got Mohammed, that guy who allegedly did the Portland Christmas tree bombing. We've got Adam Dean Fox with the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping. Wouldn't this CHI just be another in a long list? Did anybody ever mention this guy, Maxwell Yerrick?
I only heard him mentioned on, from Roger Stone and then from, on the internet, basically from investigative journalists. I never heard him mentioned officially.
Unbelievable. I know Ken doesn't put too much credence in the Maxwell Urich story. Did you get to see that interview with Roger Stone?
I don't think no, not the Roger Stone one. One of the other ones you sent me of some of your early work on Maxwell I looked at.
Let me just play you this because it got a little screwed up the other day on the interview with Roger Stone, and I'd like you to be able to hear it. I had a phone number for Maxwell York. I mean, this is a guy who did have a pretty substantial internet footprint. He had a Facebook page. He had a DeviantArt page. He wasn't invisible by any means until after the shooting. And in fact, his sister has contacted me on Twitter, insisted that he's still alive. His phone did die sort of right after the shooting, but I called it just the other day and got a call back. Here that is. Hello?
Hello, who's this?
Is this Brian?
Brian?
I was trying to reach Max Urich.
Who's calling?
This is Jason Goodman. Is this Max? So that's the way a lot of my phone calls end. But it seems to me if Maxwell Urich were alive and were irritated that I was contacting him, going to apartments that Jack Posobiec's investigator insisted were this guy's apartment, and the packages at the door were for a guy named Brian Good, who Maxwell Urich's sister is now Holly Urich Good. It would seem like that would have been a perfect opportunity for him to bawl me out, tell me to stop bothering him, stop going to his mother's apartment, stop calling him. He could appear on the internet at any time whatsoever and make a statement to clear his name, but he hasn't done that. It's strange, isn't it? It's strange, I think. I think we've lost your sound again, Joe.
How's that?
There we go. Yeah.
Clear?
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, let me ask you this, Joe. Did you ever try to work with the ATF about this? Because they were the agency that initially identified Thomas Crooks as the shooter based off of tracing his gun. They supposedly did some early facial recognition work. So they seem like an important agency that a lot of people aren't, talking about. Everybody focuses on the FBI being lack of transparency with the FBI, but the ATF is almost worse.
I did not. We were mostly focused, like I said, on the Merchant portion, and
Okay.
then the potential link. I kind of had to work my way backwards from that because the Merchant was the foreign tie, and then was there any ties between
Okay.
Merchant and that more foreign intelligence aspect, and Thomas Crooks, and then later on looking into what Tucker's investigative journalist dug up, the on the scene stuff, and I think you've highlighted that the DHS Inspector General, he was blocked as well, from completing portions of his investigation too about Butler. So I think he was probably looking into that.
Yeah, I think he was blocked, his investigation into the intelligence sharing, which my hypothesis is that Sean Curran, who's now the director of the agency, is blocking it because his team didn't share intelligence about an Iranian threat with the Pittsburgh field office, which I think the Iranian threat's pretty dubious, but you probably argue that if they told the Pittsburgh field office, people would have been on their toes that day and have done a better job guarding Trump. Just my hypothesis.
And Joe, I'm sure you've heard about this unredacted. I'm reluctant to show it here because a lot of the images from the unredacted police report will get this video immediately taken down from YouTube. If you have more time to stay with us, what we could do is in the sponsor exclusive segment, we can look through some of that material and continue the conversation. That's going to be on substack.com/@Ken Silva and also the Crowdsource the Truth channels. Have you had a chance to see that unredacted police report? Are you aware of that?
I'm not exactly sure which one. I've seen several, so potentially, but I'm not 100% sure.
There was this report given by the Beaver County ESU to Senator Grassley. And after that was heavily redacted. So I just did a normal Right to Know Act request with the Beaver County ESU. That was the SWAT team, the multi-county SWAT team that responded. And this must have been by mistake, because what they sent me was a completely unredacted report. It had the names and phone numbers of several federal agents. Let me just play you one more phone call here. This is with Rafael Eduardo Castro, the counter UAS operator, whose name and phone number I got from an unredacted police report. I called him up. Eduardo, is that you? Can you hear me? Is that Eduardo?
Who's speaking?
It's Jason. How are you, man?
I'm sorry, it's who?
It's Jason. I wanted to ask you about the drone you were flying in Butler, Pennsylvania. Was it an Andeville counter UAS drone? And why has your name been hidden?
Oh, I'm sorry, who do you work for?
I don't work for anybody. This is Jason. I work for myself. You were the drone operator, the counter UAS drone operator, right? Is this Special Agent Eduardo Castro? Have I reached Eduardo Castro? I don't work for anyone. I have a show called Crowdsource the Truth. You were the drone operator during the Donald Trump assassination attempt, right? What was the function of the drone you were flying?
Sir, there's a government phone number for official business only. Do not call this number again.
All these guys seem not so pleased to speak to me, Joe. Have you heard that phone conversation before?
I have not heard that one, no.
What's your impression of that? I mean, that guy, he's an Air Force drone specialist who was doing all kinds of testing with Anduril drones, and nobody heard anything about him or a drone prior to that phone call. All of this, RJ45 cable not working, 800 number for technical support, that all came out after I had that conversation. But let's do this, guys. Let's continue our conversation in the sponsor exclusive segment so we can go through some more of this sensitive material. Is that all right with you, Joe? You got a few more minutes to stay with us? All right, so stay with us, everybody. We're going to get Joe's response to that phone